two parties and a mediator. They come to solve the problem by separate two parties in the conflict. But the mediator, they have no interest, or they don't take any advantage from any parties and any resources, kind of like that.
That's okay. I agree with you on the first part, but the second part, whether about taking advantage or gain something from the act of mediating, that's another controversial part. Like I put in this slide, the politics of mediation, because it's not really straightforward. Of course, we expect mediator to act sincerely, to offer kind help and something like that. But most of the cases we found that is like a kind of action that come with agenda most of the time. The people that jump in to act as a mediator, sometimes they have some hidden agenda or something that they want from that issue from both parties. So, but ideally, of course, you were right that if the mediator jump into this scene, they're supposed to not gonna be take advantage,
because they understand the whole situation, and they really aware of what is good for that, and they find a properly solution.
That's very interesting, because what you mentioned is like it considered the principle of do no harm. That's the principle that most of the international actors or state actors, when they engage in this kind of peace building, peacekeeping, conflict prevention, or all this, they will uphold this principle of do no harm. Make sure that your action cause no harm to anyone. You just try to help sincerely. But according to the case studies and the research that's done on this topic, usually people that involved in this one, they have some agenda inside. They have some agenda. They want to gain power. They want to gain influence. Sometimes they want some resources, or they want to have fame. There's all kind of hidden agenda that come with mediation that later we will try to unpack all that. But thank you very much. You were very right on various aspects of mediation. And anybody else would like to try? Yes. Thank you. I saw our class representative. I'm sorry. Venerable Donna. Morning. Good morning. Yep.
Good morning, Ajahn. Mediation, right, Ajahn?
Yes, mediation, not meditation.
Yes, mediation. As I understand, mediation is like the third person who try to solve the problem between two. Yes, and yes, they use the knowledge about conflict and try to solve the problem between two people or two parties.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mediation.
Any example that you can think of? Any example of mediation case? Anything like within the country, conflict within the country, or conflict between states that have mediation?
Society, Ajahn?
Or who's speaking?
Is it Red Cross Society, for example? When we have conflict inside the country, they come and involve with the problem, try to solve the problem, right?
Yes, so usually the international organization also play this role, like the UN, the Red Cross.
Kind of NGO, right?
Yeah, the European Union, ASEAN, sometimes
Red Cross Society.
Yep. Yep. So any case in particular, I know you mentioned about the Red Cross, right? But any case that the Red Cross Society, the ICRC get involved in this conflict? Anything that comes to your mind? Any big conflict that you somehow suspect that there's a form of mediation involved? Is anything? Or any conflict between the Buddhist sect in the society? Like, maybe they have somebody act as a third party. or conflict in your neighborhood or your communities or anything that?
Yes. Sometimes it's between two countries. They have the land problem and they conflict about the land. That's why they have to have the third person to meditation, to have meditation for them.
Mediation.
Mediation for them.
Meditate. You do
yes,
every morning.
Yes. And there are some organization in Europe, but I don't know I forgot the name of the organization. That's we sometimes we have two countries have to go to listen, and what happened after that, when they come back, they have to agree with in the
Also
meeting.
They will have to agree on the outcome, like the suggestion, and then follow through with the agreement, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Mediation.
Mediation. I know there's a kind of some topic that
meditation.
Not something that's familiar to you guys, but maybe it's good to explore this. Maybe the case that I give you here is like there's one of the most famous case in mediation. It happened in 1979, and then Jimmy Carter got the Nobel Peace Prize. He mediated conflict between Egypt and Israel, right? So that time they have a dispute over the Suez, the canal, somehow they got resources to use that kind of waterway to transport goods and services, and they have the Arab world and the Jewish, they have long conflict of so many centuries already. But that time in 1979, there's a war between Egypt and Israel, right? It's called 6-Day War. And that time, Jimmy Carter, the one that he's a president of the United States, he jumped in and tried to mediate this, and they have the peace agreement called Camp David. You know, Camp David is like a retreat home for the United States. The president of the United States would go there and enjoy, and then they have this kind of like a retreat resort for the president. So they have Jimmy Carter have these two leaders of the Egypt and also of the Israel flying to Camp David, and then they have the agreement together, and then you have this Camp David Peace Accord that come out, and then people praise this accord, this peace agreement, to be one of the best in the mediation work of United States at that time. But the United States also failed in mediating conflict between India and Pakistan over the Kashmir. If you remember, I don't know, a long time ago, that time my dad was born, 1950. So that time, the United States also attempted to mediate conflict between India and Pakistan over Kashmir. Have you known about Kashmir conflict? They're still fighting over that, no? And they have 3 wars. India and Pakistan have 3 wars over this Kashmir dispute. Have you known anything about Kashmir? No. Whenever you need to unmute yourself.
Ajahn, I heard in the news, but I don't know much detail about this Kashmir.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and yeah. So it's all about what? What you know. Yeah. Based on what you know, is about what?
I know about the name Kashmir, about the conflict, but I don't know about the detail.
Actually, Ajahn, as I know, Kashmir Pradesh, when the British colony end of the country, they divided the land, one half for Pakistan, half for Indian. Then they both want to get that full land, Kashmir, because that is very important land for them. So
in the past, if I'm not mistaken, Kashmir used to be like a vassal state of India, right? And then, but they also have the Muslim population living along the borderline between Kashmir and Pakistan. And somehow the Kashmir would like to stay with India. But Pakistan also claimed on the right over the Muslim population along the borderline. So somehow they clashed, and then that's one time that they draw the new border between India and Pakistan right in the middle. It go through Kashmir, right, half. So something like that, and then it caused a kind of conflict for them since long time ago. But India and Pakistan always have conflict over land, over resources, right? So there's some other country also have to suffer because of the clash between these two countries. Quite a big and powerful country in South Asia, right? But that time, the United States also tried to mediate the conflict, but because of the, when there's a lot of issue, internal issue, like for example, if you can engage with the leader, but sometimes the leader, there's somebody else take the coup against the leader, bring down the Pakistan leader, and then somehow the deal had to be over, and then you need to bring them together again for the agreement. Until today, if you read the news, the United States help with the Kashmir issue still bear no fruit. Right? So there's a lot of conflict going on between these two parties, and they cannot resolve the issues of Kashmir just yet. So this is like some of the example that I show you. But what exactly mediation, if I base this on the international widely accepted definitions of mediation, is like it's a reactive process of conflict management. Like I said, when we talk about conflict and peace study, there are three schools, right? Conflict management, conflict resolution, and conflict transformation. Conflict management is like when you see people fighting, and let's say there's people got bullet, get the bullet wound, and you try to use something to stop the wound, the bleeding. So that we call conflict as a metaphor for conflict management. But if conflict resolution and conflict transformation, we go for a deeper, longer process of how to bridge the gap between the standpoint of these two conflicting parties and have them work on root causes of the conflict. So that's a more something like a long-term approach, right, compared to conflict management. But mediation is about short-term engagement of two parties with another party, we call it third party, that get involved and try to help find solution for the immediate conflict right now. Maybe they don't talk about long-term how to build peace in the longer term, like to address root causes, but how to end violence right now, how to have them, the ceasefire agreement, okay, stop shooting each other, stop killing each other. So that kind of thing that when we talk about mediation, we try to achieve all that, right? So it's a kind of, if you read here the definitions, it's like the process that the parties seek assistance or accept an offer of help from an individual, a group, organization, or to change their behavior and settle the conflict or resolve the problem without resorting to physical force or invoking the authorities of law, right? Mediations become very popular right now because instead of going to court, when we have conflict, interstate conflict, let's say between Thailand and Cambodia, if you remember that time I was about 16, 17, 18, something like that. We have the conflict between Thailand and Cambodia, and about the land that we have this very beautiful sand castle, right? I don't know whether we have any colleague from Cambodia, but that's a very
we have two Ajahn.
A very painful conflict.
Yeah, we have two students from Cambodia, Ajahn.
I don't know whether today they here. I still have about 10 of you guys that still maybe not know about this class.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. So we have this conflict, Thailand and Cambodia. right? Between over this beautiful sand castle called Khao Pravihan, right? And but at the end, right, we bring this to the World Court, the International Court of Justice. But to bring an issue, this kind of issue to the International Court is like it's gonna take very long time to settle this. They need to find the fact finding. They need to go for hearing, and it's long, to settle that. And at the end, you see, Cambodia got the castle, but the steps lead to the castles in Thailand, right? So we have the step, but no castle. you can jump on that step, but somehow you can never reach the castle. That's a decision of the court. But in the past, that area is like belong to one like Khmer kingdom before we divide into nation states like Thailand and Cambodia. So that is difficult to state a claim that this belong to Cambodia, wholly Cambodia or wholly Thailand. That's time the civilization still dispersed on those area. But the court ruled that Cambodia have the castle, but the step belong to Thailand. So yeah, that's so sad. But later I have a case that in Latin American region, there's a land dispute like this, and they managed to have the solution that's very good for both countries, right? But later on we will discuss on that. So mediation come into the scene that people don't want to bring the case to the court, World Court. So they said, okay, maybe we go for this mediation. We find a third party to get involved. Maybe the third party can help us solve the problem, right? But you see, there's a research done. They collect information from 1946 to 2015, and then they say that they found out that about half of the intra and interstate conflict have this form of mediation, like intervention that they call mediation, from 1946 to 2015 already. And increasingly, the mediation techniques become very popular for people, for the state, like interstate conflict and also the intrastate conflict. We have seen that since 1980s onward, this form of conflict management also used for the intrastate conflict more and more. Before that, it's popular for interstate conflict, but right now, intrastate conflict, like the conflict in the southern Thailand, we also try to have this form of conflict management, right? Because people think mediation is somehow useful, and also it's not so time consuming, right? Compared to bring the case to the World Court. And also if you bring the case to the International Court of Justice, the court say anything at the end, the final judgment, you need to follow through whether you like it or not. Like, I don't like that I only got steps lead to that castle, but somehow I need to accept the verdict from the court. So some people said it is unfair for us. We would like to have a process that we can have a say throughout the process. We can voice our concern, right? Let's say I'm the first party, and I also can raise my concern to the mediator. The mediator can talk to the other party and then, bring my concern to the perception of those the other party. So somehow it's kind of a amicable way to end conflict. So that's why it become more and more popular, right? Okay. The good things about third-party mediation is that maybe you have this non-binding, voluntary, right, in process and in outcome. Of course, if you would like to have someone mediate your conflict, you must willing to have that person into the scene. So it voluntarily based, and also in process and also in outcome, right? Let's say in outcome, usually it come with before you settle with this solution, it's a long process of consultations and agreement. So somehow the proposal or the suggestion is going to be quite acceptable to both parties as compared to the verdict from the court, the World Court. And of course, in this third-party mediation, there's cost and benefit involved, right? Both to the disputant and also to the mediator. Like just now, our colleague said that, the mediator should come with the sincere thoughts, sincere will to help the two parties. Yes, but somehow most of the cases we find that they have hidden agenda and they gain something from acting as mediator. You're not gonna risk your reputation or your action, anything, if you don't get anything in return. So most of the research had found out that there's a cost and benefit involved for the mediators as well. Yep. And sorry. The outcome, of course, in most cases in conflict management, the outcome is often somehow unpredictable. Like many people ask me about peace process and also nonviolent action. And you go for demonstrate along the street and then you try to use peaceful means. Somehow we don't get what we want all the time. That's the unpredictability of this kind of movement. It applies to most of the action for conflict transformation, conflict management, because we're dealing with people, we're dealing with national interests, we're dealing with people interests. So somehow it's kind of difficult to really have a preset outcome in sight, because you need to evolve along the way, you need to change and adapt along the way. So, but usually the positive outcome will come from the abilities of the mediator to bridge the gap between two parties, right, and have them follow through the peace agreement. The outcome, the ultimate, the simple outcome of having mediation is to have both parties sit down together and sign peace agreement, whether it's between Thai state and Mara Patani or the BRN, the group that fighting in the south. You have them together, you mediate, you have them together and sign peace agreement, right? That's the thing that we would like to see, at least at the minimal outcome of mediation. We expect to see a peace agreement signed by both parties. But I read somewhere, they said one peace agreement, there's 30 attempts in average, 30 attempts for the mediator to bring these two parties together and have them discuss about solution, about possible way out. It needs 30 times, 30 attempts to have one peace agreement drawn. You're going to convene a lot of meetings, you have them together and that. And in Bosnia, have you ever known about Bosnia, the Balkan conflict back in 1970, late 1970, beginning, 80 something until 1995, we have a conflict in Balkan area, Yugoslavia, Bosnia, Croatia at that time, no? And it's about there's about 300,000 lives lost on that conflict. People are so surprised because in the former Yugoslavia, before this conflict, it's quite a stable country. It was a stable country and is even organized the Winter Olympics there. So people think that, this kind of mass atrocity shouldn't happen in Yugoslavia, but it did happen and it caused about 300,000 lives, right? I've been to Bosnia before, Bosnia-Herzegovina, and you can see they convert one football field into a burial ground. People lost their life and there is no space to bury the dead body, so they convert one football field, the stadium, into this burial ground. So it's very sad. And when you walk into this street of Bosnia, you can see the bullet, the kind of the mark of the bullet on the wall of each building, of many buildings. And also on the floor, you can see the bullet shell that caused the pavement to have a lot of hole, right? So that kind of thing, that how people live during that time. And then, many people die, ethnic cleansing, and then they're killing each other. it take quite many years, like more than 5 years, to finally end the conflict in Yugoslavia, in the former Yugoslavia, with the attempt by many countries, right, from the European Union to the United States and some other Arabic country also try to help. But at the end, there's various way to have this violence, to get it to stop, right? So many things that they do, right? So in Bosnia, 100 peace agreement, almost 100 peace agreement. People try to convene them together, sign agreement, and for a while, maybe 1 week or 2 weeks, some party violate the peace agreement. So you need to have another round of discussion and have them sign another peace agreement. Or this kind of tedious process that we have to go through when we try to have this mediation. Right. So in the international conflict mediation, you will have this component, right? In mediation, of course, you have mediator, you have the disputants, you have the dispute itself, and you have strategies and you have outcomes. So this is kind of features of international conflict mediation. You cannot have just dispute, no disputant, or no strategy. So all this come as a package, right? Mediators, disputant, dispute strategies, and also outcome, right? Or this get involved, or these two. When you want to analyze the mediation scene, make sure that you see all these features present in your scenario, right? So they said the disputant, you talk about the first component. We talk about mediators later on, which is our key point today about mediator. But the disputant, usually, according to the research that I read recently, they collect information about conflict from 1946 until 2015. And then they found out that in the interstate conflict, you will have disputants that come from this different regime, different political regime. For example, you have about 63% of conflict that one of the parties are democratic country, with non-democratic country. Let's say Thailand have a fight with China. China is another political regime, right? They uphold to different political regime. So about 63.2% of conflict, interstate conflict, have the disputant that come from democratic and non-democratic regime, political regime. About 33.8%, we can see both conflicting party come from non-democratic regime. Right? Let's say you have North Korea fighting with China, let's say. So that's non-democratic regime, right? Only 2% that we see in the conflict, interstate conflict, that involve both democratic countries. Let's say Thailand and the Philippines have fight together. So that's the non-democratic, and that's both countries have democratic regime, right? So you can see most of the trend is like this. You have engagement in conflict between non-democratic and democratic country. A lot of these happening. And what are they fight over? The dispute is all about ideology. Sometimes about ideology, clash between idea, right? Sometimes it's about security. Sometimes it's about colony. Okay, let's say about this Kashmir thing. You have the Kashmir that considered to be the feudal state of India, and then they fight over this former colony. Sometimes it's about resources. Let's say we have this island emerge from the sea, and everybody want that island. They want the resources that come with the islands, because underground maybe you can dig out for gasoline from petroleum. So that become an issue to fight over between two countries, or maybe 3 or 4 countries. Sometimes they fight over ethnicity and also the territory, like dispute over land thing. So that is a kind of issue that mediation mission today have to solve the conflict, interstate conflict. Okay, so maybe let me ask you a question before we have a break. Yep. What kind, when we have this conflict, whether it's inside a state or between two states, when is the conflicting party will allow the third party to come in? Like, for example, in Thailand, we have conflict between Thai state and the Malay Muslim, right? But Thailand said, oh, this is our own internal problem. We will not let the UN jump in, or ICRC, the Red Cross, anything, or European Union or Switzerland. We're not going to let them jump in, right? So when do you think that the state gonna be ready to have third party involved as a mediator, or have somebody get involved? When it's gonna be the breaking point, or the point that they see the benefit of having somebody mediate the issue? Usually, any idea on that? Like in Thailand, they always say that, oh, it's an internal problem. We will not let the UN jump in. We will not let whoever jump in until we see, oh, Malaysia can help as a facilitator. But, until that point, what going to be the factor that contribute to that decision making of Thai state? What do you think? Yes, Vulnerable? Yeah.
Yes, Chan, we have one experience before in Sri Lanka. We had conflict in the Tamil people. Then at that time, actually, it started 30 years ago. Then from that day, Norway UN community, they came to as a mediators. Then they signed some agreement time to time, and it continuously happened 30 years because they involved with that problem. And after that, in 2006, the government announced to them go out of the country. It is internal problem. We can solve this problem. After that, within 3 years, we solved that problem, Achan.
Oh, so why? Who the one that initiate the thought that we're gonna let the UN come in your case?
That Tamil people, actually India, because they pump a lot of monies to them. Then they signed the agreement for their advantages.
So another party that also get affected by conflict feel that this conflict should have somebody else involved, right?
Yeah.
Because the two parties couldn't agree on many things, and then they need to curb the effect of the conflict, not to let it spill over to the other country or cause a refugee kind of issue or some sort of thing, something like that, right?
Yeah.
So in the case that it become too difficult to handle for the both party, right? But of course, as it's a voluntary act, the conflicting party themselves have to agree that, okay, I will have someone coming in. You cannot just force, the third party cannot force themselves into the scenario and try to mediate things. They must get consent from both party, right? From both party. And anybody would like to share your thought? Thank you, Vulnerable. Anybody would like to share your thought? When conflict reaches a climax without figuring out any affordable solutions or agreements, yes, you're right too. When it reached the point of stalemate, like everything stands still and then you're stuck in one point, you cannot move forward. So they will try to find someone to help with this issue, right? Or sometimes it's like when violence is become too difficult to control anymore. It costs a lot of life and many things, and then both parties feel that they cannot handle the situation. So they will try to seek the third party to get involved, right? So most of the thing, like when they cannot find solution within among themselves anymore, so they need someone to help with this. But most of the part, let's say you see this country or this actor try to mediate the event, but before it come to the official announcement that this country or this party gonna jump in as a mediator, there's a lot of background called offline discussion between the two parties also, and between some other countries that can influence these two countries. Let's say good friend, let's say Thailand, we are good friend with Malaysia. So in a conflict, maybe we talk behind the scene with Malaysia many times, or we talk behind the scene with Singapore. We talk with many people, right? Before we can officially announce that, okay, we will let this party get involved. So what we see, maybe it's just a tip of the iceberg. Okay, this party jump in, but before that, there's a lot of process get involved to have one party mediate the issue, right? So it's never really a straightforward one time talking and then you get to decide who's gonna be the mediator. And until today, we still cannot find that kind of principle how to select mediator. It somehow freestyle. Okay, you think that this country can help you better, or you ask their help, or sometimes people seek help from other people, like individual groups of people, individual also can, anyone that you think can serve as the best mediator for the situation, right? So maybe we have a break, or we should go. Usually we have a break at what time? 10 or 10 sharp? I'm not sure.
5 minutes. It's okay, Ajahn.
Now
Yes.
or
Around.
later?
Yes. Now
Now?
it's okay, Ajahn. Yeah.
Okay, so now we have 5 minute break and
Yes,
then we
yes.
come back. We
Yes.
come back with the mediator and also the action of mediating. What do they do when they mediate conflict? And maybe I